Hello, dear colleagues and friends. Welcome to our webinar. This is a translation of a webinar by the very developer of biomedis company, a very well-known person in the field of bioresonance, inventor, innovator. He has been implementing new solutions for bioresonance devices for over 15 years. The Vice President of Biomedis, Sabuhi Sharifov. Today, I will try to briefly tell you about my experience. Let us start with a little bit of history. The scientists in the Middle Ages were always interested in how all flesh works. With the discovery of the cell, the humanity came up to the idea that all the biochemical processes in the cell are accompanied by a change of the potentials, both on the internal and external sides of the cell. This way, this electrical feature of the biochemical processes is an integral part of all flesh. If this difference of the potentials of the internal and external sides of the cell is compared, if this difference is equal to 0, then this cell is considered dead. In the beginning of 20th century, a Russian scientist questioned the process of cell's division, and why the cell grows up to a certain size and then starts to be divided into 2, then 2, and 2, and so on. And he made an experiment on an onion, and he supposed that this comment for the cell to start dividing is some source, some signal from somewhere, from outside. He planted one onion, and the other one he planted with its root earthward to the first one. And he discovered that in the place of the second sprout pointing to the first one's root with its tip, the process of division was faster. This way he discovered that there is a contactless information transmission between two similar plants. And he started to study the mechanisms. He supposed it could be an electromagnetic mechanism. He excluded the molecular mechanisms, whether one plant transmits some hormones to the other one. He put the barriers between the plants, excluded any contact, but came up to the conclusion that that signal has the electromagnetic nature. Then he was trying to figure out in which range this radiation was. And it was found out that this radiation was in the ultraviolet range. With the development of technology, these tests were repeated multiple times, and it was found out that even though the number of photons is very minimal, like 100 photons per second, still it was proven that this was the electromagnetic nature. I was also interested in why the cell grows up to a certain size. So if we take the volume of a sphere, a ball, there is a cubic dependence on the radius. If we take the surface of this sphere, there is a quadratic dependence on the radius. So if all the nutrients get inside of the cell from its pore, the cell absorbs the nutrients only from the surface area. It doesn't have any more space to get them from. Then, in some moment, its area is not enough to supply the whole volume of the cell, since the volume is increased with the increasing of the size in cubic degree, so the cell has to divide to increase its surface. And the comment is the electromagnetic signal, which has impact on the cell's nucleus. Then other scientists also worked in this direction. During the Second World War, scientists stopped publishing their research's results, and these researches became kind of secret. During the Second World War, Germans conducted their experiments on people, how to impact human organism with the help of electromagnetic fields. Just a quick explanation for those who hear about bioresonance for the first time. Any electromagnetic field, if it's an alternating current creating an electromagnetic field around, then there are a few parameters like amplitude, power flow, frequency, how many oscillations per second makes this field, and the last parameter is a polarization of its wave. So these factors have impact on all flash very significantly, in some cases favorably, in some cases negatively. Then there was Fall, who continued these studies. Schimmel. In the USA, there was Hilda Clark. She was developing the antiparasitic theory of the electromagnetic waves. In her studies, she was trying to figure out which frequency corresponds to which microorganisms and how to get rid of the pathogenic microorganisms with the impact of these frequencies. Based on the electric fields, if we talk about a contact impact on the body, there were used the contact devices. There is the abundance of such devices on the market. Have a look at the pictures. There are some examples. Biomedis company also started its path with the contact devices, and still some patients use these devices. All these devices had the method of AC voltage applied in the range from 0 to 10,000 Hz. There was an impact on the functional level. For example, if we take a living organism, the main unit of the organism is a cell. Connective cell, muscle cell, smooth muscle cell, etc. The cell consists of the nucleus and membrane. Between membrane and nucleus there is protoplasm, and the inner side is negatively charged relative to the outer side. The difference of the potential is around 70 millivolt. This difference of the potentials make the metabolic processes occur, and all of this is accompanied by mechanical oscillations of the cell membrane. If we imagine it as a ball, then it's mechanic oscillations. The previous devices did not have impact on the cell level. The tissues are built also from the cells, and a particular organ is built from a tissue. Then these organs gather together, controlled by the brain, central nervous system, vegetative nervous system. In different moments, all of these organs gather into a functional system and perform a certain function: digestive, respiratory, blood circulation, excretory function. So all of these devices had impact particularly on functional system. These frequencies lied in the above-mentioned range from 0 to 10,000 Hz. In 40s, Royal Rive discovered a method of contactless impact on the organism. He used a plasmic antenna. It's an evacuated tube which, under low pressure, was filled in with certain gases, in some cases with xenon. There could be nitrogen or something else, and there was passed a high voltage discharge. So the discharge appears in the tube, then to the power chain of this tube there is applied a modulation frequency, and this way it was possible to have an impact on the organism contactlessly. If we remember how the radio receiver functions, when you turn it on and you set it to a certain range of a certain radio station, for example, you hear the voice of a broadcaster. The broadcaster's voice is perceived by the microphone. Then it is enhanced, it is transmitted to a transmitting device. Its carrier frequency is 106 MHz. Its amplitude is modulated by the broadcaster's voice, and the antenna is radiating this. And at home, we receive the reverse process. Received with the help of antenna, then transformation, detection from the carrier frequency of the modulation signal, and through the enhancement of the speaker, we hear this sound. Similar process happens in a human organism. Our cells, especially on the surface of the skin, especially on the biologically active points, have such nonlinear properties. if we talk from radioelectronics perspective, the skin can be considered as a conductive element, as a diode. If such a modulated high-frequency field gets on the surface of the organism, then automatically the low-frequency signals will be coming out. So then he carried out researches with the help of heterodyne microscope. He observed bacteria under his self-made microscope and radiating these microorganisms with the electromagnetic waves of different modulation frequencies with the same carrier frequency, he observed the destruction of these organisms. This way, he made a table which is still used by the producers these days. This is the next generation of similar contactless devices. The technologies are being improved, and accordingly, nowadays, the devices could be created based on the microelements background. There were times when we couldn't even imagine how we would be able to talk on the phone without any wires. But now, even children carry phones in their pockets. The same thing with our technologies. They were improved, and you can see on the picture the examples of the devices produced by our company. Each device had its own advantages, and gradually I went deeper into studying the topic, and later I came up with another technologies. For example, multi-frequency bioresonance therapy. It's a simultaneous impact on the organism of several frequencies. And this way we managed to decrease the impact time and we increased the efficiency. Then, in 2014, there was created a first device, Biomedis Trinity, in which I implemented the method of biological feedback. Let me try to explain it briefly. If we have an impact on the organism at a certain frequency, each person, even though the cells are similar and they have similar size, and it seems that the frequencies should be the same, but still there are differences, and these differences lead to the situation that the effectiveness of a certain type of therapy in 8 out of 10 people worked, but in 2 people for some reason didn't. We had to select another programs in these cases. And I found out when I used to work at the University of Iran, we had researches with the aim to create a diagnostic device. But as a result, in the course of diagnostics, we recorded the reflected electromagnetic signal from patients with the same diseases in SHF range. And we tried to extract useful information out of this data, classify it, create a general base, but it was found out during the diagnostics, during taking measurements, that there was therapy carried out simultaneously. Based on this principle, the Trinity device was developed, in which the radiation was carried out with 3 frequencies simultaneously. And here we use the range up to EHF, extra high frequencies, up to 18 to 26 gigahertz. For us, 25-30 megahertz is already considered a low range, which we had in previous devices. If we consider an organism as a complex system controlled by the brain, it turns out that it's enough to work with the brain, metaphorically saying, the brain will do the rest of the job by itself. There is no need to touch the organs, because if you show the brain the right path, which it forgot for some reason it stopped controlling this area. The reason could be in thinking processes, what lies in a person's soul and mind. It all started from there. So if we forget about some area, the brain stops to control it. So if you start to remind the brain from outside that there is this place in the body, remind to pay attention to this area. After some time, the brain remembers about it and takes control back. Here on this slide, very briefly, the impact method is shown. Trinity, when being turned on, first, during the first few seconds, gets adjusted to the organism. Then it constantly stays in the mode of constant feedback and corrects the radiation when operating. Here we see the range of extra high frequencies. The Trinity technology allows to get out of the vicious circle, conflict, disease, stress. The impact is carried out on 3 levels of organism structure: cell level, molecule level, functional level. Here it is shown that the electromagnetic waves created by Trinity device have impact on the organism on 3 levels. First, on the cell membrane, second is functional level, third is molecular level. Here is shown the construction of the cell membrane. Let me say a few words about the structuring of the water matrix. If we consider water as the molecule of water with 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen in the middle, they are placed at an angle of 104 degrees. In this case, if we consider the molecule entirely, it appears that the molecule of water is very polar. One side is plus and the other side is minus. Plus tends to minus, and the molecule of water creates a certain structure. Knowing the size of the molecule of water, knowing all these angles, like a Lego, the molecules can be constructed in figures forms. There are up to 512 kinds of forms which can be constructed with the molecules. So, with certain conditions, the water constructs itself into certain forms, and it has a significant impact on the course of biochemical processes. The structuring of water, meaning giving it a certain structure with the help of outside electromagnetic or mechanic thermal impacts, has impact even on physical properties. For example, when making certain alloys, or for example, when producing the concrete. If the water is structured, it increases the solidity by 20%. In our case, the water structuring allows to make it more active in chemical and biological meaning and contribute to the healing of a patient. It is a help for the body to self-heal. Another impact of Trinity is the synchronization with the brain rhythms. When making researches, we fixed the electromagnetic activeness of the brain neurons in the range from 1.5 to 18 GHz. I'm sure that these indicators are even higher if the measurements could be taken with even more modern and precise equipment. Previously, we were talking about the devices which have active impact on the organism. We used the energy of a power source. Then we developed the technology of the photonic crystal. This is a multi-layer structure device which changes the structure of the outside field, whether it's a patient's field or it's a technogenic radiation around. And if this radiation has a harmful impact, then it can be minimized or even converted into favorable. These photonic crystals are the size of a plastic card. It can be carried around with you everywhere. They can be also used to structure liquids, water. They can be applied to biologically active points. These are such spatial frequency filters. Each filter is tuned to a certain meridian of the body. Let me say a few words about the meridians. In Chinese medicine, the meridians are known It is known that in our body there are 12 main meridians. On the pictures we see the entrance and the exit of these meridians, but in reality there are also inner paths. On the pictures mainly there are drawn only outer paths, but there are also inner ones. They are quite measurable structures. They are some kind of waveguide channels which have exit up to DNA, to the cell. If we look at a tree, the meridian is like a stem. Then the branches, the smaller branches, and the leaves are flesh. This is like a fiber optic network in which all the energy of all the SHF and optic oscillations is canalized, and all this information comes to the brain. So these channels have such control points. These are biologically active points. From these biologically active points, we can radiate, receive, or even have impact on other people, transmit information to people of yourself, your feelings, emotions, thoughts. Some people have it more manifested, some less. Some people have psychic abilities, but these abilities can be developed. Any person can feel it. So these crystals are filters for the meridians. More information about the crystals you can read on our website. And a few more words about bioresonance. If a person does not change their lifestyle, does not change the way of behaving, view on life, reaction to the occurring events, then the effectiveness is decreased. During the application, it will all work. You will feel the effectiveness. The main cause of all problems lies in our thoughts, in our subconsciousness. Try to avoid stress. Even if you got into a stressful situation, try to control your reaction so that it is calm. First, the pathological focuses occur in the brain, which go down from the cerebral cortex to the brainstem, and this feedback is turned on, and you can't stop thinking about this event. First, the person feels it consciously, worries about it multiple times, wonders why it happened, etc. Then the time passes and it feels like it's all gone, but in reality it stays in your body. And since it's there, some area connected to a certain body part starts to have pathologies. So please consider changing your lifestyle combined with using the therapy, and it will make its magic. So this is all I wanted to say for today. Thank you for your time and stay healthy.